because I believe that new approaches and new methods for foresight are something that we really need to talk and discuss this topic, because the world changes, and we need to change our foresight methodology as well. And I believe the four presentations that we will hear today, they all complement each other, and they help us. There are different pieces of a puzzle, but together they provide us with information on how new tools, new approaches, and AI as the main tool for the future methodology advantages, how they can help advance foresight methodology and build infrastructure and build mechanisms that provide the best possible research policies and other policies in general. So I want to welcome Cesar Costa. He will be our first presenter. Cesar, I'm very curious about foresight as a living infrastructure. So the floor is yours. We are eager to listen to you, and I invite everyone to ask some questions after Cesar's presentation. The floor is yours.
Okay, thank you very much. Just a second, we will share my screen. So I'm not seeing you during the presentation because I have just one screen. So if you have some questions, please call me. So are you seeing the screen?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. So this work was a compilation of a work that we did together with the Ministry of Science and Technology in Brazil during the 5th Conference in Science, Technology, Innovation that was done in the end of 2024. And then we collect all the data, all the discussions that were done there, and compiled everything in one text. And then the Brazilian government asked for public querying about this document. So during about 2 or 3 months, there was a website that was open to the scientific community that was composed by mainly for researchers in universities and research centers. They fill up a form, and then we got all the data. So the intention of this presentation is show how you did this work when we collect all the data about science, how the science is being developed in Brazil, and also the public opinion about it, and how we can include everything in just one text that's going to turn into strategic policy for science and technology. So this is basically what we done. We have all the science how is being developed. The pace is very accelerating in the last years, just because the advent of artificial intelligence. So we are able to collect a huge amounts of data and aggregate it in one concept that can help us to understand better what is the society needs for technology, and help also to establish some priorities in this matter. This is what we call technology intelligence, because we take all the real-time technology changes and insert it into the government work in a way that they can process all this information and redirect the science trends in Brazil and to to align everything with the whole world development in science and technology. So we have these two different ways to do it. We have the traditional foresight, that is basically a collection of data, an interpretation of this data, and in a way that we can find trends and group all the data in some clusters that indicate where and to where the science is going. So now we are trying to create a more complex way to analyze this using artificial intelligence in a way that we can collect in real data in real time all the data that is coming and connect this to decision makers so they can provide some insights about how to communicate to the society that we need this kind of technology or this kind of infrastructure, and then how to implement it in a strategical way. So what we are doing is collecting all this data, all this information, filter it in a way that we can insert in certain documents and works that can be assessed by the decision makers and in a way that they can understand, because the way that we communicate between researchers is very different from the way that we need to communicate with decision makers, because the, the the formation of these decision makers is very different from the academia. So we need to process all this data and put it in a way that they can understand, and mainly they need to understand the importance of this concept in a policy that's going to guide how to develop in science and technology. So the people that decide are not scientists, mostly are not scientists, because scientists normally don't involve themselves to politics, but we need to communicate to politicians what is really important for the society. So this ENCTI is the Brazilian National Strategy for Science and Technology Innovation that was designed as a strategy for 2004, in the year that the Congress happened, in a time span of 10 years. So we need to put this in a way that we can retrace all the steps. So it's not just create like a black box with artificial intelligence, put out the data and receive the results. We need to know what is happening. So we break out all of the steps and we understand every step in a way that we can fix some bugs or misunderstandings by the computer or the AI. So we have these main steps in the pipeline. One is the data extraction, because we have all these books, documents, and posts and videos that were recorded during the conference. And then we extract out the information and create a kind of intelligent triage where we redirect, group everything in a contextual manner. So we can treat everything in a way that is going to be redirected to the right person to analyze. So we do a contextual mapping that is basically using fine-tuned embeddings and semantic alignment with the texts. And then we group these documents and everything that we have. And basically, our texts or transcriptions of videos and records from the presentations. So we group all this information in groups that are related to one subject or another, and also when we have connections between these groups. So sometimes one subject is very related to another. So we need to know everything. So we need this kind of semantic network between the subjects using algorithms like the Lvova algorithm to group everything. And then once we have the group of documents and the main documents, we can connect these suggestions to the main document, know exactly where we can put the suggestion in the main text, and then create like a consolidated drafting or a consolidated text that will be evaluated both by the AI to suggest one text that can satisfy all the suggestions and the main text, and also a human that is going to work as a referee from the end, the final text. So basically, this is a breakdown of the pipeline where we have some phases. The first phase is filtering out the noise because since it was an open querying, so everyone was able to insert the information. Not everyone in Brazil, but the academia, basically. So everyone has a one way to write the texts. They insert some tags or some informations that are very difficult to a person to filter out, but the computer can do it. So we can organize everything. So we use, in this case, the GPT 4.1 mini model to classify all the text in three categories. One is if the text was related to a strategy, so we need to teach the AI what is a strategy. If what is a plan or a more direct way of work, because sometimes people don't understand what is a strategy and say exactly what to do. So this is a plan, it's not a strategy, but it is more objective. And sometimes it's just garbage, so we need to put in another box. So we use like a semantic way to analyze it using cosine distance between the documents and the main policy that was drafted. So we connect the suggestion to some parts of the text, rank the how these suggestions are connected to them, using some metrics like cosine distance and things like that. And then, in a more proper way, we create a semantic network that connect all the texts that are originally in the main text, and also the suggestions. So then we use the AI to construct this draft of the document that has the original document, the suggestions where they fit in the main document, and then create like a Microsoft doc sheets where you have the main text, some suggestions like a normal group of persons usually edit a document. So then a person enters in this final review and are able to partially accept and edit the document, or even reject the suggestion if it makes no sense to the final version. So our golden rules is that AI is used as a tool, is not taking these final decisions, because the final decision must be human in this case. So the human is going to push the button to accept or not all the suggestions. In this output from the AI, we also asked in the prompt, we also asked not only for the suggestion, but also they had to justify why it was inserting that in in that part of the text. So the reviewer knows exactly what the AI is trying to do. Instead of only clicking on accept everything, is going to have a suggestion why the suggestion is done. Uh, to govern this kind of black box that normally AI is today, we tested very approaches. Some using like normal natural language processing, like using TF, IDF, plus the cosine distance, some commercial embeddings, and more open embeddings that are available in the market today. So we here in CG, we like this more traditional approach that we can retrace all the steps, but sometimes isn't practical because normally the natural language processing is very traceable, but you only connect texts that are using the same words. So sometimes a more fine-tuned embedding is better to be applied because you can also find texts that are talking about the same thing but not using the same words. So we test all of this in this condition and put everything in consideration, and we have these three different kinds of approaches to be able to choose what is the one that fits better to our problem. So by the end, we have like 2,192 raw inputs, including the main text, and that was coming from 858 different IDs or different persons. And then we do all this ID duplication because people can do more than one entry, filtering everything out, and make like a clean output that is actually the one that the reviewer is going to do. But by the end, we have like almost 700 different unique semantic clusters that were connected to the text. So we divide this work in many different reviewers for linked to the specialities of each one. So it was easier to do in this way than just one person because there's hundreds of different reviews that need to be done. So we divide the work. So we by the end we have this work that connect everything in a review that is going to be included or not, depend on the threshold that you apply, and in ask for questions like how the society want to change really in that matter, to propose to the representatives in the Congress to evaluate it, and then guide to a final version of the text. So this text is going to be delivered to the president of Brazil in probably the end of this month, I think, and is going to trace the strategy for Brazil in the next 10 years. It's a work of thousands of people. It's just not a couple of people sitting behind their desks and think about it, but it's thousands of people that involve research, academic community, politicians. So more than 5,000 people participated directly or indirectly from this work. So it was a huge task, but with the help of AI, we are able to consolidate an important document for science and technology in Brazil. And that's it. This is part of the team that working here. Here is me, Jackson Maia, that is now the coordinator of analytics intelligence in the center. Israel is a brilliant PhD candidate, and Kleber Alcanfor is a guy that work here in the IT team, controlling and making available all the data. So thank you, everyone. I'm open for questions.
Thank you, Cesar. This is so impressive, and it is great that not one suggestion by the citizen is left. This is very, very impressive. Thank you. And Professor Sokolov, you have a question.
Okay, Cesar, thank you so much for your brilliant presentation, and my best regards to Jackson and to everybody there in CGE. I enjoyed very much with your presentation. My question is, I guess since it's living foresight, so it's implemented every week or every month. I don't know. How often do you kind of do you provide policymakers with updated information? It's every month, or it's on request, or half a year? This is one question.
Yes.
And second question is
this.
Yeah.
Okay.
The second question is okay, it's enough. It's enough. Okay, please go ahead.
Okay. So this work in particular is a work that is coming out since 2024. So it's almost 1 year and a half, because it was the end of the year. And so the conference happening in the end of that year. So from there, we collect all the information, process it, and in the middle of the last year, we started opening the public querying. It was open for 2 years, and then we spent this 4 months, almost 4 months, analyzing the data and aggregating everything in one document. So it's a long time. It is a projection for 10 years. So it's going to create a strategy for developing the science technology in 10 years. But here in CGE, we work basically on demand. So we do some particular studies in some subjects that are demanded by the Ministry of Science and Technology, and every day or other, we receive a demand, and then we work on that. So it's hard to tell exactly when demand is going to come, but we have sometimes have just a couple or a few months to accomplish. So we have like a constant flux of inquiries from the ministry.
Okay, thank you.
Every project has a time span different.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and we have time for one more question. Derek?
Can I ask a question? Yeah. So at the beginning of the presentation, you said this is classic foresight. And actually, to me, it seemed like classic forecasting, which is quite different. But I want to ask you a question. Is there a parallel project that sort of goes into this, where you're looking at garage science, rebel science, for example, weak signal technologies, discontinuous projections, reconceptualizing and recontextualizing assumptions rather than having fixed assumptions? Because I'd be interested to see if you've done this in 2016, right? So 10 years back rather than 10 years forward. What would we have found in terms of the incredible acceleration of AI and biogenetics and so on and so forth, which are sort of off the map from what the actual forecasts were a decade ago. The actual rate, the rate of progress, the rate of development of most of the more recent technologies, like for example, nano for nano engineering and things like that, are completely different to what the actual forecasts of those technologies would be, and therefore the policies are way behind. So I'm wondering if there's this sort of parallel sort of input, because I really like this, but it seems more like a forecasted sort of approach rather than a foresighted approach. Let's put it like
that. Okay. Yeah, I think. Well, it's my opinion, but I think it's very hard to separate like forecasting for foresighting, because one thing sometimes lead to the other. When you show the government that he need to invest in that thing, you are promoting that thing that is going to achieve your forecasting sometimes. We have, for example, here in CGE, a study that we did in 2012 about rare earths that kind of projected everything that was going to happen, and now we are seeing that is becoming like a big issue in the whole world. So, yeah, and CGE is now updating this study. So CGE also has a what we call an observatory, that is an entity inside the center that monitors all the science in Brazil, that releases all the trends and everything that is happening in science and technology in Brazil every couple of months. So we are updating these studies regularly, but it's actually hard to push everything that we are seeing in the data, being the detection of weak signals or even the trends, to the decision makers that are people that are doing the policies. But this is our work, and we do our best to accomplish this mission.
Okay, thank you very much. It's an excellent presentation. Just thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. And let's move on to the next presentation. I want to introduce to you Anna, Valeria, and Danila. They are part of HSE University's I4A team. So, my dear colleagues, the floor is yours.
Здравствуйте, уважаемые коллеги. Сейчас мы запустим демонстрацию.
Hello, dear colleagues. We are going to launch our presentation and share the screen. Can you see the screen? Yes, then I yield to my colleague. Good afternoon. The topic of our research is multi-agent systems and how they are applying for foresight, strategic analytics, and decision making. The authors are Anna Aksenova, Valeria, Lvova, and Danila, Kopeikin. We represent ISSEK, all the High School of Economics, and we focus on and specialize in system. By 2026, AI become a new standard, and has generative AI increased by 240%, and 88% of entities and organizations utilize generative AI in at least one function.
Интегрировали искусственный интеллект в стратегическую аналитику и принятие решений.
20% of the organizations have integrated AI into its intelligence and analytics. So there will be AI first analytics or decision intelligence and autonomous agent-based systems. These are the next trends. However, there is a lack of trust towards the quality of data, and that's why we need new tools that can aggregate data from diverse sources, identify links between them, and produce data that can be processed and digested by experts. Next is the timeline for AI analytics and strategic analytics and AI. Back in the 1950s, the experts used empirical methods to digest the data themselves. The first concepts of neural networks emerged, but they didn't live up to the expectations. And then, in the 1980s, 1990s, we saw the first PCs, the internet, and big data management, and that opened up opportunities to manage big arrays of data. However, it was pretty costly, and no one was no one was certain of the benefits, and that's why AI was considered a dead-end technology, and that was until the second decade of the 21st century. Now let's look at Foresight timeline, as it integrates AI. In the noughties, Foresight continues to increasingly leverage big data. We use big data analytics, predictive models, and future scenarios. Later on, Foresight becomes a necessity for global organizations because machine learning is introduced in crowd Foresight. And that's a kind of a golden rush era. The first digital site has been introduced, and generative AI was also introduced. Machine learning is picking up. LLM models help to improve predicting. So we first saw GPT-1, then we have the retrieval generation, we have different agents and simulation modeling. Closer to today, in 2022, 2025, Foresight shifts to full AI models. AI scans scenarios, and the humans just provide the framework and just take the ownership and take decisions. That's when we saw the rise of ChatGPT, multimodal agents, multi-agent frameworks in 2024, 2025, and that's transformed AI from just a tool into a full-fledged stakeholder of all analytics processes. And let's look beyond. In 2026 and beyond, AI will become an infrastructure layer of analytics, while agent systems are still in the transition mode from pilot to some of the successful scenarios. By 2028, about 15% of all the analytical tools will leverage AI, and the decisions will be made autonomously. And now we would like to talk about our research at HSE. So definitely, we're seeing a strong boom of AI that's happening alongside the AI timeline globally. Our university has focused a lot on AI to support strategic analytics and foresight, and that's been underpinned by the development of the Foresight School over the past decades and the adaptation of these technologies to the needs of the experts. So we first established the institutes, then the Foresight-Centre. We launched the Foresight Journal, and we introduced the first roadmaps. And that was the time when we launched major Foresight projects. Ever since 2015, now our approach to Foresight projects has changed. Innovative technology to automate research is developing. And, we employ global tools and our own in-house ones. We produce LLM models that support our HSE experts. So 10 years ago, we came up with I4, that's a big data mining system, and that has brought together all of the latest cutting-edge technology to crunch big data. So we set up the foundation for a unique database that's existed as of today. We've uploaded the first 300 million documents, and we are designing the so-called vector models. In 2018, that was the time when we have the first interactive window shops of data. We need to identify the drivers and the barriers of growth and to systemize quantitative forecasts and other models that has enabled foresight experts and analytics experts to discover insights quicker so that they don't spend too much time. Now, what's been happening over the past 5 years? Let's have a look. So here we are. In 2022, our multilingual database that consisted of 300 million documents has grown to 750, and today it's 850. And we've then introduced a Russian, English, and Chinese multilingual model, and that's cut down the time that experts need to process documents in different languages. Now, a few years ago, we rebranded I4, and we have a new logo, our own signature style, and in 2023, we came up with a summarization model. And we've expanded the range of products that we will offer. And now, fast forward to 2024, when we set up several I4 assistants, and some of them have been leveraged by the policymakers. We also came up with an advanced and adapted LLM, which is our technology foundation for many of our products. And I4 has been developing its key MVP or multi-agent AI platform. It incorporates all of the previous products like I4 and other assistants. It will also harness the methodological approach that was time-tested. And right now we're expanding the list of agents. And to learn more about AI agent and its opportunities for foresight analytics, I'd like to give the floor to Danila Kopeikin. Yes, as my colleagues said, there are two key timelines. The timeline of our in-house tools and the timeline of global tools. And we definitely leverage AI agents, and that's why we employ multi-agent architecture. So ontologically, there's a major issue. We need to understand what an AI agent is, what a multi-agent platform is. And as Anthropic analysts say, there is no agreed upon definition of what an agent is, and that's an issue. If we don't have a clear understanding, if we don't have consensus on the definition, it's really hard to talk about something. Is this a multi-agent platform or not? Is this an AI agent or not? Well, different big tech firms try to come up with it, like Google, Microsoft, OpenAI, and some Russian companies like Sber. They're trying to come up with definitions. And the key characteristics, the common ground is planning, decisions, specific objects, competition, and being autonomous. And it all really looks like what humans can do: planning, action, sometimes cooperation, sometimes competition. If we go back to the timeline on foresight, so one of the foresight methods is our expert panel discussions. So today we can see that AI agents in a multi-agent infrastructure, they are kind of industry-specific experts who can compete in one way, in one area, or co-plan their study and outline their ideas and then come to joint solutions in other areas. And we have our own solution. That's a comprehensive one. We studied all the different definitions and we've come up with our own one. So that's our definition of an AI agent. What we're actually trying to do is to design a multi-agent platform. I would say an assistant for experts. And within this platform, you will also have the so-called AI agent. So this platform is a solution that is clear-cut and then relatable to everyone. We use our language, natural language. We have our agent dispatcher. So we first feed a prompt to the agent dispatcher. This agent dispatcher, depending on the prompt, then triggers a certain AI agent. Then this AI agent executes this prompt, and the researcher would get a PDF of the findings. So next slide, please.
Вот смотрите, обычный, в общем-то, понятный интерфейс.
So there's a clear-cut interface. So here's what we type like. How will AI agents develop over the next 3 to 4 years in the financial sector? So here's the response we can get. And it's very well structured. It's kind of clear-cut. You have the data for 2026. You have some forecasts, and it will also... So you have actually several AI agents that have jumped on this request. We have our own AI agent that focuses on markets. So the dispatcher has handed over the request after it identified that this AI agent has to be used. So here are the documents. Now, what about the next? Let's do a next query. So we look at some new forward-leaning areas. We're also have an AI agent that looks at trend maps and semantic maps and produces some analytics. It highlights some weak signals, stable trends. So we can look at it, we can study, we can work with our own documents, we can take industry-specific documents for AI agents. That's a kind of a compilation. We ask a question and it provides us with a well-structured answer, particularly based on the documents. So there are no hallucinations here because it doesn't access a wide web, it just works with the documents. So you can also have a look at the specific excerpts it's incorporated in its response. So we can build a report. So you get a PDF file and that's basically the summary of your operations. So you can share it with your co-workers, you can edit it. So that's an amazing tool. Really is handy. So you don't need to copy paste anything from ChatGPT. You have the graphs, you have the PDF. That's a very sleek way. You have the bibliography, it's well structured, all the references are here. So what's the bottom line? So we believe that so far AI will not be able to take ownership in foresight, in strategic analytics, in decision making. So the world will have to follow a kind of a blended path. AI agents and multi-agent platforms will indeed play a role, gathering information, crunching big data, so they can also process information bold. The ultimate decision rests with humans. The humans validate it, and they can put together a strategy, a nationwide or a corporate-wide strategy, or it can pass it over to decision makers. So we need to have a balance between our human expertise and AI. That's it. Q&A.
Valeria and Danila, thank you so much for your presentation. And definitely hybrid methodologies are the future of foresight. Let's move on to the questions. Do you have any questions?
Excuse me, Olesia, it's not a question. It's just I would like to ask you to make next presentation to be made by Ostjan Saritas because he's...
Yes, we discussed it with him.
Okay, good.
Yeah, Ostjan, do you need a minute or two to move to the quieter place?
Sure, yes.
And
yes.
Are you ready now, or maybe we can have...
Just 2 minutes, please.
Yes, let's ask some questions to... So Ostjan will start in 2 minutes, and we have time for one question. Yeah, and right, I'm really curious about hybrid methodology, and I'm interested in when we are talking about research pipeline and the research pipeline of iFora and AI agents. What are some critical steps when we need expert input? When we require experts to share their judgment and maybe suggest some changes?
Ну, могу я ответить. Да, спасибо за вопрос.
Thank you for this question. Well, let's look at different stages where human experts can step in. Previously, definitely was experts only. However, today, when you initially feed the data,
задачи и так далее.
When you come up with the goal and the research, the goal of your strategic analytics or foresight, then all of this information can be shared with the multi-agent platform with AI agents, and they will work on it. So we can just observe, we can watch this process. We can watch what they're doing. Sometimes they take action, sometimes they can only speculate. So it may be in just a rudimentary phase, but what we see is that last year,
И агенты работали в рамках одного
AI
диалога.
agents worked as part of one dialogue window. Right now, there are multi-agent architecture
Часов.
frameworks that work autonomously for several hours, so we can feed some data, our goals, wait for 5 hours, and observe what's happening and get some findings, and then validate it. If we don't like it, well, we can send it back for another iteration. That's our ultimate goal as part of I4. So that's kind of in-depth research. So you have human at the input, human at the output stage. That's the ideal that we should be striving for.
Move on to the next presentation. Ocean, please share your idea about importance of anticipatory governance. The floor is yours.
Olesia, thank you very much. Thanks for the opportunity, colleagues. And sorry that this is actually coming in a very easy time while the session is going on right at the moment. So I just took a little short break from them just to join you because I didn't want to miss this important conference also, which we have, of course, every year in April. And this is, of course, such an important event for me. So I have to prioritize that also, whatever meeting I have. So without taking too much time of you, of course, I'd like to talk about my topic, which is towards the AI state and how we can actually integrate anticipatory governance as the new operating system for global growth. Of course, we have been talking about foresight for many years now, even several decades. But when we look at the integration of foresight mechanisms into governance systems, we see that there are still actually things we should do. So instead of like doing ad hoc foresight exercises time to time and like giving some advice, for example, or recommendations in sometimes regular periods or sometimes ad hoc every 3-5 years to the governments, I think it's very important to bring foresight and anticipatory governance as a kind of as an instrument for policy making, which is practiced on a daily basis, which I called earlier, as some of you may remember, foresight on site. So for bringing foresight actually into our daily practices, daily routine. So this is not something that we do occasionally, and something that we need to do regularly, obviously, especially when we are thinking about today's complex, uncertain, chaotic, and turbulent world. So this is some kind of a background for this presentation. We are facing now a poly crisis. So there are so many actually issues and challenges going on, and this involve, for example, geopolitical tensions and issues, technological advancements, sustainability issues related to the climate and economies and societies. And there's a great mismatch, of course, still, because we are struggling to deal with these systems as they become more and more complex. We can see that our governance systems are having actually great struggles. Though we are aware of the issues, but we don't have necessary mechanisms in place or integrated into the policy-making cycles. So that is why I just would like to re-emphasize that anticipatory governance, of course, is very important to deal with this centric issues, and then the in a poly crisis context, of course, and to develop necessary mechanisms, especially drawing on the opportunities given by the artificial intelligence. So just to tell a few words about why we are facing this polycrisis. So first of all, of course, the technological disruptions are transforming our lives, our societies and individuals. So it's not only about AI, there are so many technological developments going on at the moment, including bioengineering, for example, datafication, and these are also bringing us some issues related to ethical frameworks which need to be established, the role of human, because these systems actually should be developed in a human-centric fashion. And we, of course, don't have always regulatory measures in place. And meanwhile, of course, we are facing environmental crisis, climate change, and resource scarcity. So we are seeing that we are at the threshold, basically, because some of the resources that we are using are really scarce. And then we need to find ways actually to use this in a responsible way globally and to come to a global agreement, since these are finite and they have to be shared. But meanwhile, of course, we are generating some other crises in the form of some geopolitical fragmentation. So we see that there's a great shift of power dynamics in the world. And this kind of a search for a new balance in the world is creating all these tensions we are facing today, with some economic consequences, of course, and with some social consequences at the same time. Especially our people, our youth, are experiencing great problems in terms of adapting into this social, cultural, and technological transformations. And we are really at the threshold of some big breakthroughs. These breakthroughs are obviously chaotic always, and we are suffering from them. But I am actually hoping that a new order will come, especially with the greater role of science, technology, and innovation. Science, technology, innovation are giving us great opportunities, both in our physical world. You may have seen this slide before, because this is actually what I would like to always bring at the forefront, because these are the new landscapes that we are living in and operating in. It's not only our physical world, there's an ever-growing digital world, and at the same time, there's a big space in front of us. Both space gives us opportunities both to look at upwards and to explore some new horizons, go beyond the horizon, and also downward to manage our world and global affairs. So the question is, of course, that there's a widening gap. So not only in terms of like technology and governance, but in general, of course, economic developments and geopolitical developments, these are actually developing and unfolding in a much faster speed than our governance cycles. So that is why we started actually talking about the growing gap between the disruptions and complexities we are facing, and at the same time, the adaptive capacity and the analog governance practices we have. And at some point, this creates actually a danger zone, because when the gap is big and it is growing over time, so this is actually a gap also for abuse, because this is an unregulated gap. So there will be many trials, many experimentations at the same time, and also many abuses within this gap. So one of my key argumentations, of course, while talking about this, is that how can we narrow this gap, and how can we move on into more anticipatory governance practices? Not only in theory, anticipatory governance is, of course, not a new term, but it's not still practiced effectively in our governance systems, especially when we are talking about the speed mismatch. So the speed of change is much faster, scale mismatch. So our nation state frameworks prove inadequate for inherently global challenges like climate disruption, supply chain vulnerabilities. This requires a lot of systems thinking, because these are all interrelated and interdependent. Therefore, the scale of the problem actually is growing, and we cannot address or find solutions for only one part or a piece. So we need to have like systems thinking in place effectively in practice. So we should move on from like a silo thinking of the existing governmental and policymaking structures into more kind of cross-cutting structures, so that we can work all together, and not only with the government, of course, private sector, industry, research should come together in a more effective way. And We are trying to do that with foresight exercises, but as I said, these are usually on ad hoc basis. So how to do this is a regular activity and regular policy making practice. And scope mismatch, of course, this connects to what I just said. So moving from silos and then towards a more kind of fluid collaboration, which is more flexible, which is just built actually with the kind of actors, stakeholders becoming more accessible, and the traditional boundaries are actually overcome. And these are demanding, of course, new and fundamentally approaches for the governance. So that requires us to move from the analog state, which is suffering from the speed, scale, and scope mismatches, and towards the digital and anticipatory governance, which is adapting the digital reality and building some more efficient policymaking structures optimized for adaptability and resilience, addressing those exponential changes, which requires some iterative, continuous policy development and fluid boundaries, which are allowing some establishment of ecosystems and the more flexible ecosystems, which can be established in real time or just in time whenever it's needed, or in advance, of course, because of the anticipation and also the growing network issues, which require, of course, the systems thinking and multi-stakeholder engagement in our processes. So that is why these systems should be on board, and they should be thinking about already the next cycle, the next wave, and not only to address problems as they occur, or try to use some of the past instruments to find solutions to new realities and problems. We need to already design our response systems by considering all these challenges. So how it can be done? It can be done based on 4 principles. First of all, establishing an agile governance system. So this considers policy as iterative. So there's a prototyping, for example, testing and learning before, again, issues emerge. So that means we can even bring some maybe design thinking, probably, understanding and practice in our policy making, so that we can already start thinking about the future policy challenges and prototype the new opportunities and the new issues, try to test and sometimes stress test our existing policies and learn from that experience and adapt in advance. So we don't find in this way seek solutions upfront, but this is actually allowing us to try and test and to be more flexible. And rebooting governance would also include polycentric governance, where problems are solved and by distributed networks of actors. So we are not actually looking always at the central authority or the government to find solutions. Here we see that distributed networks of actors actually work in parallel, because the central government, of course, is very busy with so many things, so many challenges and problems coming at the same time. So it is very normal that in a kind of a, polycrisis environment, that they cannot deal with all the problems and issues at the same time. So that's why it is very important, in order to deal with polycrisis, to establish polycentric governance systems. So here we have more distributed networks of actors and dealing with different issues. They are also empowered, so they can actually find solutions to some of the issues right at the source before actually it becomes a real threat or a real challenge, for example, in the coming years. And during this process, we may, of course, utilize all sorts of technologies by establishing some kind of platforms and developing some kind of algorithmic systems, for example, and using this to improve our law. So this kind of digital services and infrastructure will both improve our public services, and at the same time, we will have also anticipatory law systems, which is a problem the current governments are or administrations are facing because of that kind of growing gap that I mentioned you. And anticipatory governance, of course, all these 3 then will feed into anticipatory governance, that is from moving governance from reactive to more proactive stance, and of course adapting future foresight or foresight principles and making it more participatory, evidence-based, and future forward-looking. These are there in theory, but as I said, in practice, because we have been talking about this for a long time, but we see that there are some attempts by different, ministries, different governments in different countries. For example, I've been hearing some cases and examples, but there's no like, a holistic mechanisms actually which can adapt this kind of anticipatory governance principle, and which is established based on that, because some of the issues and most of the issues, unfortunately, are still dealt with those kind of traditional policy-making systems. And here, of course, we are talking about the AI in many places in the world. This is not the only platform or event we are talking about AI. There are tens of rooms around this building, for example, and there are so many others outside in the world. People are discussing how to use AI and how to bring AI actually into our policymaking processes and how we can make use of these systems, and while avoiding, of course, some of the threats, because AI creates both vulnerabilities and at the same time, it creates some kind of systems that can help us. So we can actually see AI as a threat for cybersecurity, but at the same time, AI can help us for predictive and tools which can help us to treat some, to detect some of the threats which will emerge over time. It provides us necessary information space for the processing of information, and then for making sense of it, and for sharing that, and bringing some more stability through augmented intelligence and real-time adaptive resilient systems, and also helping us to develop more transparent and participatory social contracts. So I know that I'm just about to finish now. This is actually with the participatory governance system supported by AI, and then adapting agile and polycentric models, we can see that these are helping us to make more efficient systems. So we can see that the regulatory adoption can be up to 10 times faster. So this is a hypothetical figure, but it is actually telling us that if we have established necessary, for example, regulatory sandboxes, where we can prototype, test, and find solutions for the anticipated policy issues and agendas in advance, this may bring us great efficiencies. And at the same time, of course, we can find solutions to our problems in a kind of a more efficient ways by establishing this kind of ecosystems, and then bringing, of course, the different actors together, not only for the anticipation, but also for action. So this sort of system goes from reactive to proactive. Instead of wait and see postures, we are going into sense and respond strategies through horizon scanning, through scenario planning, and through participatory foresight practices. And you can see some of the components of that in the figure here. And also, this process, of course, utilizes human-machine convergence or collective human-artificial intelligence. This is fine and acceptable. So we are not trying to prevent the use of AI. We would like to actually find ways to integrate AI more. And what is the sustainable level? So internationally in the literature, actually it is considered that 45% of collaboration zone is a kind of a reasonable a limit for augmented intelligence, which includes human in the loop, and then human still, leads the system. And 40% of the system, for example, can be automated, and through unsupervised machine learning, robotic processes, and so on. And there will be, of course, some of the services which will be still delivered by humans, and this will require some kind of empathy, complex strategy, and ethical and moral judgment. So this appears to be a kind of a more sustainable balance of human intelligence and machine intelligence and augmented intelligence, where humans and machines come together. So in our future, of course, the roadmap, we will first of all try to digitize our systems, and then decentralize in the midterm, and then we will establish some kind of more anticipatory systems for anticipatory governance, which fully integrates foresight models into its routines as a kind of not one-off activity, but an ongoing exercise. So the anticipatory governance requires us to reboot the future and our governance systems. So hence our future governance must be resilient enough to absorb change, smart enough to steer technology, and human enough to maintain trust and accountability. Many thanks.
Thank you, Austin. And I believe it is great that during our session, we can see how different presentations complement each other. And maybe a presentation by Cesar showed a way to how sense and respond to governance can work like. So let's ask one question to Austin. Austin, can you please tell me what do you believe is one key factor that can help the process of transformation toward anticipatory governance?
One key factor is, of course, to start utilizing technologies like AI, but doing that, of course, in a responsible way and doing it in a kind of human-centered way. So we should always make sure that human is in the center, and then there's always a human oversight. So this will help us, of course, to maintain our social, economic, and also political structures. And also what is very important, that there's no one uniform AI. So AI is actually very open space. So what AI are we talking about? AI may create, this was, for example, one of the important points which came, it may create a new digital colonization. So we need to develop our own AI systems, which may, be linked to our cultures, our values, our expectations, and our societies, rather than a kind of a uniform AI, which is developed elsewhere. And in the end, actually, we may see that our realities are deteriorating as a result of the AI use or abuse. So it is very important that we have actually full control over AI and the data used by AI, and develop more customized AI systems for our needs.
Austin, thank you for finding time during your another event. Have a great day, and let's move on to the final presentation. And
it was my pleasure. Thank you, Olesia, and thank you, everyone, colleagues. Great to see you all. Let's keep in touch.
Thank you. And can you please check that every microphones are off? And then let's go to the final presentation. Nikolai, Olga, please share your ideas about how to combine innovation cycles.
Добрый вечер, коллеги. Спасибо за приглашение. Я знаю, что у нас были опции на английском и на русском выступить. Мы выбрали на русском.
We opted for speaking in Russian because for all other conferences we have to speak foreign languages, but it's so gratifying to speak our vernacular language. So anyway, we will be showing something that was done in this country domestically. I hope we're not making the life of it too difficult. I will now yield to my co-author, Olga, and I will butt in once again in the middle. Let me unfurl the presentation. And I'll speak by way of introduction, talking where this idea comes from, to combine the curves that we will be talking about today. These are two binary models, accounting for the incubation dynamics, and each of them provides a perspective of how innovation propagates. Neither of them gives a full account of what has been happening, as we'll see from the case studies. And taken together and put together, they explain more than taken separately. So there are kind of synergies between these. There are two models that look at how signals translate into new norms from two different perspectives. One of these, popular diffusion of innovation, modeled by Everett Rogers, describing how changes in society are viewed by humans, by people. Different categories of people need to have take their own time to accept or reject this or that innovation, whether to include a piece of innovation into one's routines. Apart from that, apart from people, there are innovations driven by their own logics. So it is so interesting, curious to see the overlap between the technological trends and human perceptions, and that accounts for successes or failures of different solutions. Let's now take the technology perspective. Hype cycle by Gartner tells us how expectations level changes as the technology gets mature in terms of production and application, business applications, I'd say. So the horizontal show is the time axis to roll out in society, and the vertical axis is the expectations volume. The previous one, the vertical was the volume of the total audience by time. So the diffusion of innovation model, this one, the previous one, has some quantitative values at each point of the curve, the percentage of people that you can measure. How many people, for example, started using LLM in this country? This is kind of a measurable thing of innovation penetration, while the hype cycle, about expert assessment, well, Gartner tells as follows. They put together some of the signals that testify of the maturity of a technology, and later an expert panel discusses that and makes up their mind where to map and to spot the technology, a specific technology. So on the one hand, it's very valuable, but on the other side, this combination of curves can help us find our own bearings. So the expert model of Gartner is subject to change, is kind of flux. So you can see how researchers face one and the same technological solution through the hype cycle and can move ahead and move back also. So overlaps provide a better perspective. If we overlap these curves, it's not about calculating one with the help of the other, but actually each of the stages of the curves have some optical connection. So a certain category of people on the curve corresponds to a certain stage of technological development of a solution. So put together, they explain the innovation's dynamics and the direction. If we compare these, converge these curves, we can see that there are three main stages that innovations go through. You could look at these via the human perspective and the technological perspective. The first stage, innovators and early adopters. From the perspective of the hype cycle, it is about the growth of public interest and expectation towards a solution. Because everybody is agog as it is so new, so fresh. Later, the moves to the early majority that is after high quality and safety, and the expectations go down because some of the track record is accumulated, and not all of that is successful. And actually, then the maturity grows on the hype cycle curve, and we move to the late majority that has even higher requirements for safety and reliability and of a technology, of a solution, of robustness of a technology. And later, when we move to the scalable plateau and the massive rollout, a technology, a solution is capable of embracing the most skeptical ones, the laggards. So this is about conceptual overlap between the technological development, the perspective or perception of the audience. So these models validate one another. So if we see that there's a hype technology by an expert assessment, we can also see at the same time and measure the percentage of the audience involved. And we'll have an account of why the specific stage is happening right now. So in a nutshell, these models are very similar. The strong points of one model can be either offset or improved by the other, so they are mutually complementary, these two models. So we not only resort to the academic part to verify a hypothesis, we are after practical application. In the 13 years, well, with Gartner hype cycle, the business knows a lot about them. And the other curve is less known. So, not be helpful. Quite often, when we manage innovation, ask ourselves, when is the moment when we've got to start? As people have been trying where the window of opportunity is. One of the ways to use combined model is this may not be of them know a lot about money metrics. So quite often special world, the window of opportunity was not fully utilized. And this is General Magic, a case study. Calendar, telephones, and book. It's got the touch screen technology. Most curious is that this was rolled out in 1989. Oh, good, but there is one question. The first smartphones. Remember when the first smartphone appeared? The top was much later than 1989. Arms size is in the mid-90s, and all remember the presentation
вот смотрите, что
That
получается. По факту, между тем, как технологически, концептуально и, внимание, инвестиционно-инновационное решение, комплексное достаточно, было поддержано, прошло 18
solution
лет.
was
То есть,
supported
по
back in
факту,
1989, and
компания
only 18 years
тем, что
later,
это один из самых больших эпических провалов того, что стало
it was
новой
one of the
нормой через 18
most
лет. Это
now
первое, что
epic
она знаменита.
failure
Второе, чем она знаменита, это то, что
in
почти
18
все
years.
специалисты
The
этой
second,
компании стали топ-менеджерами в Силиконовой долине. В Apple,
that
в Oracle, где угодно. Ну, это такая кузница
staff
правды.
members became top
Слава делу,
managers.
в тот момент
And
этот проект не получился. И вот здесь
they
возникает
failed in
вопрос
their
такой,
own
что можем ли мы,
undertaking.
используя наложение этих двух моделей, комбинированную
We
модель,
can
понять,
use
где
the
содержатся
overlap of these models,
возможности? И на самом деле
find the
очень
proper
интересная вещь, что похоже, да, можем. Потому что, ну, если мы базово
section.
знакомы с
We actually
кривой дисперсии инновационной, то мы знаем, что вот между ранними последователями и
know
ранним большинством
something
есть
about the
такая
dispersion
зона,
curve.
Costa Aksenova прекрасный, который
There is the
в переводчике мы
splendid
определяем провал.
reserve.
По-английски в оригинале она называется chasm. То есть то, где вот умирают почти все веселые начинания людей, которые даже успели собрать под это венчурный капитал, инвестиции и так
Of
далее.
the
И вот посмотрите, на самом деле,
undertakings.
что эту идею мы там после 2013 года и начали разрабатывать.
So, and
Потому
after
что по факту
2013, they're looking at
наложение
this.
хайп-сайкла на
So
кривую
the hype
дисперсии очень
cycle
четко нам показывает, что вот он прям провал, он прямо виден, где
just clearly
происходит
indicate
падение
chasm.
того
So
самого в долину разочарования, насколько я помню. Так
forward
вот,
to
и очень четко можно увидеть здесь как раз
Valley.
те самые точки, которые явно являются точками принятия решения и перехода либо к другой модальности коммуникационной, либо к решению о том, что надо инвестировать или поддерживать R&D.
You
И
have
так
to make a
далее, и так
decision
далее. Ну,
on
их
to
очень
move
коротко
to a new
для того,
paradigm.
чтобы не придумывать слишком хитрых
Do not
названий, назвали
invent
Vision Gate. Это когда мы понимаем, что, скорее
things, and
всего,
we
сейчас
call
мы
these
по факту
vision
будем
gates,
помогать,
points vision
это
gates. And
классика управления инновациями, перейти от
the
раннего
classic thing about
большинства,
about
от
innovation
адоптеров,
management,
трендсеттеров, тех самых, к раннему большинству.
from the
Это
early
процесс
adopters to
validation
early
gate, после
majority,
которого
and
начинается,
after
собственно говоря,
follows the
развитие,
validation gate.
принятие,
And
адаптация. Expansion gate — это когда вы можете расширяться, увеличивать свою долю на рынке. И вот
we
супер
arrive at the
важный момент, его
expansion
очень
gate
часто
when
люди
you have to
упускают, говоря о
multiply
vision gate.
scale
Это
up.
когда надо выходить из этой
And
истории и начинать поддерживать
again,
какую-то другую инновационную
have to
траекторию, продуктовую и так далее и
next,
тому
move
подобное.
on to the
И если вы
next.
там пишете, что мы должны закончить, мы не видим этих штук, но я время смотрю, я думаю, сейчас
See
мы закончим.
whether
Здесь еще
you
есть один супер важный
text
момент,
this
я
to
просто вижу, что вылетают
finish
коллеги,
or to
поэтому не
be
вижу, что
winding up.
здесь
But
еще есть один очень
we are
важный момент, потому
nearing
что
the
мы
end.
сейчас с
But there is
Максом
one
в
important
сообществе,
thing.
занимающемся там Future Studies, Foresight и так далее, у нас самое, ну, такая
Futurist.
микроопределение ранее — это ранний сигнал, слабый сигнал.
You
Мы
know
хотим к
the
тому,
what
чтобы при
weak
взаимодействии
signals are, or
периодически
early
поставить такой
signal.
вопрос. Ну, очевидно, что
No,
тут что-то есть до слабого сигнала. И не будем их называть там
no.
сверхслабым сигналом. Мы назвали это неким
Just to
tacit space,
think
то есть
that
пространством, в котором
there is
сигнал,
something
согласно
prior to weak
классической
signals,
теории, там, в том числе сформулированной Хилтоном,
and these are the
Ансоном и
spaces,
Энсофом, он еще не
according to
интерпретируется.
Hinton and
Вот на самом
Ansem,
деле, если вот это все
that are yet
сложить
to
в
interpret.
одну
And
историю,
if
то мы
we
увидим, что
pull
мы
these
получаем
things together
неплохой инструмент,
and
который у
see
каждой из моделей
that
свои
this is
штуки может
a
неплохо
good tool
посчитать, а вместе сделать динамической. Вот это самая
capable of
важная вещь.
doing
То есть это не
that,
статическая оценка того, где мы сейчас, а
but
того,
that
что
will
может быть.
provide a dynamic
Логику развития, логику
of
там,
assessment,
инновационную и так далее и тому подобное. Ну, вот здесь
and we
очень
will
коротко пройдусь.
have a
Очень просто
better
кейс
idea of the
2013
dispersion
года сделан был в России по
logic.
такому
And this
продукту
is
Alpha-Bank.
uh,
Продукт,
something from
который привязывает
2013,
его накопительный
product by
счет к
Alphabet,
физической активности. Условно, больше ходишь,
tying
получаешь
the savings
процент
account
почет
to
больше. Он
your
был абсолютно сделан в формате,
more
ну,
you
то есть,
walk, the
смотрите,
more steps you walk,
инновационных
the
решений
the
технологического построения
interest
банка было
rate.
ноль. Инновационная модель.
So there were zero high-tech solutions on the sides of the bank. But it's been an innovative solution. No one's ever transformed physical activity into direct monetary motivation. So back then, the concept was making its first baby steps, but together with the Alpha Bank, we were able to build that. I mean, we've never had any technology solution. It was not a technology. We just used leveraged different type of user experience. And You know, we had certain business KPIs, etc. And what's important is that when we know where these windows of opportunities are, we can get a wonderful benefit. We can predict it. We can figure out what kind of communication we can provide, what kind of support we can offer. And if we sum it up, I can report that we can understand whether the market's ready, whether we can enter the market in terms of its maturity, and harness these two models, pit them against each other, and we can calculate these windows of opportunity. So that's the final slide. So we can keep it so people know where the hype cycle starts, where you have the early majority, and it's really hard to figure out where trendsetters and innovators finish. So we did a test together with a Russian firm. So it's a replicated methodology, and we figured out there's 16% of trendsetters, and we were able to fine-tune the system, and we can replicate it, we can scale it. So I'd move to the next step. So I'd skip all of that, and our next steps is aligning it all with different contexts and different technology disruptions. So, I mean, you cannot have one technology in isolation. Each technology, builds on a previous technology. Okay, thank you very much. I hope that we can provide a research paper, and I hope you can glean more data from it. Thank you for your attention.
Olga, thank you so much. I believe that dynamic system of innovation, diffusion, innovation cycle is very important, and a great moment is as important as a great product. Moment and product, they are both very important. And I want to thank every participant and every speaker who joined us today and yesterday. And it is great that we gathered international audience. And I want to thank our translators, Alexei Sadikov and Alexander Shein, who helped us to make this event truly international. Thank you, everyone, for your time, for your attention, and for your curiosity to Foresight.
Olesia, if you allow me, I would like to, on behalf of the organizing committee of the conference, I would like to thank you, first of all, to wish you all the best. As for the last presentation, my congratulations. So Nikolai, we can discuss it later with you. Okay, probably we'll do something with you on this matter. Yeah, and of course, I wish all of you all the best, and I wish you great weekend. I guess we did a very good job during these 2 days. Thank you so much.